Hi, guys. Welcome back to another week of Monday Morning.
We are so excited that you're here with us, and we have another guest. You go ahead and introduce yourself.
Oh gosh. Okay. My name is Mallory Parker. What do I
Where are you
say?
from?
Yeah.
Oh, originally from Georgia, but we live in Nashville, Tennessee now.
She
I'm a
drove
mom.
all the way here
Yes,
All
for
the way
us.
here for this.
A mom, a wife, and yeah, my
Love and
husband
life,
Sings
yes.
country music. Yeah.
Sweet. Well, Mallory and Andrew are expecting another baby.
Second baby girl.
Yes, we're excited.
Sweetness. Are
Very
you
excited.
excited for the transition? Are you nervous?
I
little
think
bit of both?
Yeah, I think more so. Just Carly's 4, so it's just been kind of her and I with Drew being on the road a lot. It's just us two. So thinking about trying to mix in another little baby, and that is
So different.
That's what I struggled with going from 1 to 2. I think like the overall transition was easier for me because I knew what to expect.
Yep.
But learning how to like divide
your
myself,
attention. Yep.
that always kind of gave me and I still struggle with that.
Yep.
I just
She
feel
literally
guilty.
does.
If I do
Hard.
something with Carter and Cooper's not there, I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm just missing out.
And it's funny because they probably don't think
They don't
anything
care.
about it.
No, they don't think
Yeah.
anything about it.
Right.
Is Harley excited?
Oh yeah, she is so excited. When we found out, the whole time before she wanted it to be a girl, and so before we found out the gender, I was like trying to figure out a way to like prep her that it could be a boy. Like
This may not be a girl.
Yeah. So anyway, it ended up being a girl, and she talks about it all the time. My sister.
How
my sister, I'll share with my
sweet.
sister. So we'll see.
Oh my
It
gosh.
will be interesting. I'm sure you experience like to see. She's very excited now, but once the baby comes, like, is she gonna be like, "No, that stuff's mine"?
Yeah,
or like,
right.
And I'm sure she'll go through some of that. But
I think so. Like with Carter was little, or he wasn't even 2 when Cooper was born.
that's right.
So,
So they're close. Right?
Yeah, I think I've always wondered how the age gap would be. Like one of our good friends, they just had their 3rd baby, and their oldest is the same as Carter, and he's just like a little dad this time. So I feel like her being a little older, she might want to help more than it being like, what the heck is this?
That's
thing?
always
Get
what
it out
Mom
here.
said with us because we're 3 years apart. She said, I love that age gap because they're old enough to help.
Yep.
And they're old enough to understand what's going on
Right.
Yeah.
instead of having 2 babies
Yes.
that have no idea.
Yep.
I've had a lot of people tell me that age gap is like, it's truly a big help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, hey, can you go grab me a diaper?
Yep.
Or, whatever.
Right. And they're more independent. Like the other
Yes.
day, she like buckled her car seat by herself, and I was like, "Oh, that's gonna be a
That's
lifesaver."
nice.
once
Yeah.
this baby
Literally.
comes. Like,
Yep.
just
Well, you're
little
grown.
stuff like that.
Yes,
Yeah. So
that makes a big difference.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, we're
So
excited.
fun.
That is so exciting.
And I think too, what y'all experience too, like I'm excited. My sister and I are really close. We're 3.5 years apart. And so I'm excited for Harley to have somebody, growing up
Yes.
and into adulthood, like that she can
It's like a
confide in.
built-in
Yes.
best friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really
I'm
is.
excited for that.
Girl.
I love you, Cece.
I love you.
But
But that is true
I
because
even love our age gap.
Yeah,
Like, I
I
think
think
the
it's-
3 years, that's what I will probably
Yeah.
want to do just because you're close enough in age
Right.
that you're not in 2 totally different parts of life, but at the same time, you're far enough apart where you're not overlapping friend groups.
it's not
or,
like such a
Right.
competition.
Yep.
Yes.
That's what I feel like the boys, because they're 20 months and they're fine now. Like right now, they're like
Right.
best friends. They're more like twins than different ages. But I do feel like maybe once they really get into sports and like that high school, the competitiveness,
It'll be hard. Yeah.
it may be really tough just because they will be so close.
Right.
Whereas, which me and you did not like each other up until a couple years ago.
No, I think everybody goes through that, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just a normal.
The storm, we had to
teenage-
go through it.
I
The
know,
teenage
yeah.
years. Yeah.
I think I think everybody goes through that because I went through that with Reed, too.
Well,
When
that's
Luke
just
and I started
siblings, I
dating,
feel
me and
like.
Reed could not be in the same room.
That's crazy.
It was so bad. But now we're all
She
closer than
literally
ever.
tried to whoop him in the driveway one day.
Oh, really? That was in like middle school.
She brought out the
Wait, we
windmill,
all
and
love
I was
each
like,
other.
"Break it down, Reed, run!"
It was rough. But we are closer
Yeah.
than ever now, all 3 of us. But I liked our age gap, especially in high school.
Yeah.
Because I was a freshman, she was a senior.
Oh,
So
nice.
she knew what she was like. She was used to it.
Yeah.
And coming in as a freshman to know a senior, it's like, oh, yeah, well, my sister's a senior. And everybody's
Right.
like, oh, okay, you know, like you're just
A little less
you feel
intimidating.
yes,
Yeah.
like you feel a little more comfortable because
You have
she could
somebody in your
walk me
corner. Yeah.
yes
Yeah.
to my class, like she could give me the rundown of how it went
Right.
instead of me just going in there completely blindsided like
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know this place,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that I do really like that age gap.
It's important. Yeah.
And I'm sure Mom always says that Rayleigh treated me like her little baby doll when I was born. That I was Rayleigh's toy,
That's sweet.
I do love that.
taking care of me.
do love that.
But
knew
I
I
don't
was
know.
being
We
mom.
talk a lot about raising kids, which obviously I don't have kids, but like how I watch Rayleigh. I'm so thankful that you had him first.
It was me first.
Yes.
So I can go through the
Yes.
ringer
Right,
first.
right.
So I can just take notes
Yeah.
on to-dos and not to-dos.
Right.
Yeah.
But it has really helped me so much, like getting to the age now where we're starting to think about kids and,
Yeah.
you know, to the point in our marriage where that is in conversation. I love having like an example
Right.
that's so close to me. You know, you can see all kinds of other people like, oh,
Yeah.
they've got kids. That's so fun. But
Yeah.
to be so close to it and
Right.
be so interactive with them and, you know, with the boys and just in their lives, very involved. Aunt of the year.
Toot,
Well, and
toot.
too, like y'all are so close. Like you're not gonna like sugarcoat things, like or
No,
you know,
yeah.
you're gonna be very honest about XYZ or whatever it is that comes up.
Yes.
Because y'all are so close and your sisters.
There's
as
not,
opposed
like,
to
an
being,
awkward-
like a friend or
Like, oh, I
an
don't want to
acquaintance.
say that because I don't want you to judge me.
Yes.
Like, for
Yes.
thinking this
Yeah,
or.
right.
Yeah, no. And I even like that comfort too because I feel like sometimes like they are mine and I
Yeah.
will discipline them like they're mine.
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah.
you know, like I'm not like, oh, your mom
Well,
wouldn't
and
like
I
that.
do.
You know?
I hate that it, which, and I guess it probably always has been, but especially now, like we talked a little bit before this with the social media, like that comparison of motherhood, like me looking at other people thinking, like, oh my gosh, okay, well, am I being too hard on my kids? Or like,
Right.
oh my gosh, they did that. I must suck as a mom.
Right.
Like little things like that. Having Reagan, I do feel like I can be transparent in. Okay, these kids are driving me nuts.
Literally, like, I'm about to lose my
today.
mind today.
Yep.
And not
and
feel
that's
like you're
normal
failing.
feelings,
Yes.
like,
I'll let her know. I'm like,
well,
girl, I don't know how you
maybe-
do it.
Yeah.
Maybe you feel that way.
Oh yeah,
but-
I think I saw a thing yesterday. It was like a meme, and it was like carrying my kid out of a store screaming, and some guy was looking, or somebody was looking at me or something, and the guy said, "Trust me, I'm not stealing him. If I wanted to steal a kid, it wouldn't be this
Would
one.
not be
The
this
kid was,
one.
like kicking and screaming. I said it to my sister, and I was like, "That's so funny because
That's
so
such
true.
how I feel. Yeah,
This one
like,
is mine. This is mine.
Yeah.
He's
Taking it
forced
because
go
I
with
have
me.
to.
Right,
Yes.
that's right.
This is not willingly.
Yeah.
That is so true. But I like being able to watch you with the boys because especially now that we're in the position that we are in our relationship with Christ and in our walk with Christ, being able to watch you be such a godly mother. This is going to turn into like a
I'm about to say, y'all, I'm pregnant. Don't be getting me crying over here.
she's like
I love that.
but being able to watch you be a great example of a godly mother and like you were saying with the comparison, I ain't even got kids and I'm already comparing myself to you like, girl,
Yeah.
I know I ain't gonna have the patience for that. Ain't no way.
But I've told Reagan too, like, it's so different when it's your own kids.
Yeah.
Like, I know you and your sister don't live close, or she lives in Georgia, right?
Yeah, she's in Georgia.
So I feel like it is different, but it's, I don't know, like the comparison I don't feel like is as hard when you're a sibling. Like, I don't
Yeah.
feel like you should compare yourself to me.
Yeah, well, I do.
Well,
You're an
thanks.
angel.
You, I mean, I know, but
But being able to watch her, it has taught me a lot.
Yeah.
And Luke. And that's why I'm so glad that Luke's been able to be a part of the boys' lives since day one.
yeah.
Because we've got to watch them grow up and help them grow up, you
Right.
know, like step in and help. Cooper came and stayed with me and Luke the other night
Yeah.
and it was
Sweet.
like no big deal. You know, like
Yeah.
Yeah.
it wasn't like, okay, here we go. Like, I don't know how to do this.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
whatever. And I do think, I mean, obviously Jace helped with that a lot because I was a freshman in high school when he was born.
Yes.
Right.
So I learned at a young age, like, okay, it takes a lot.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think it is refreshing to know, like us saying we want to raise our kids in Christ, like
Right.
finding that community or even just that small friend group where you do feel like you can be transparent and like you're doing it with like-minded people. So
Yep.
it's not the stress of like,
Oh,
my
they're
gosh, well,
judging
they made
me.
me feel like crap
Yeah.
because I did this
Yeah.
or so I'm sure you and Drew obviously have those friends too, like where you
Yes.
feel like you can be close, whether it's a sister or just a
Well, and like
friend that you've grown to
it's
know.
important too. Like I've got a bunch of girlfriends that we're really close with, and our kids are kind of all around the same age, and like they all attend church and they go to church, and Harley is seeing them to go. They go to church, and her friends are at church, and
I love that.
so
Yes.
that's important too. Like just seeing your children, seeing you surrounding yourself with people who
are like-minded
yes,
and
exactly.
knowing, and that's what we talked about that a little this morning, saying like, because I feel like Sunday school now is a little different than it
Yes.
was.
What
And
it-
like
yeah.
Reagan and I didn't grow up in church, so Sunday school wasn't a thing for us. But I just feel like the times that we did go, like the church that we went to, I guess it was more like very old school,
traditional,
like
yeah.
not where I guess you could understand like kids get bored, like
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
oh my gosh, I have to go to church Sunday.
Yeah,
Like, oh, this
yeah.
is gonna be awful.
It's not as entertaining.
But
for them at their
now,
age,
Right.
yeah.
I feel like it's more exciting for kids. Like
Yes.
the boys look forward to going to Sunday school.
Yeah.
Oh, they love
and
it.
they make it fun. And even from that, and then just us keeping it in conversation at home, like they talk about Jesus.
Mhm.
Like it's not like I don't want to say Jesus because I don't want to offend somebody.
Right,
but
right.
like starting them
They're
at that
so
young of an
innocent.
age,
Yep.
they're more freely to talk about,
Yep.
oh, I love Jesus.
And
Like,
I love that because I truly think that that is a gift from God. Like their innocence at those
Yes.
young ages, they don't have a filter.
No.
They're not going to refrain from saying something because they're afraid it's going to offend somebody.
Right.
If they love the Lord and they know about the Lord, they're going to talk
Yeah.
about him.
Yeah.
And I just love that because I think that's such a light to
Mhm.
see such a little person
Yeah.
loving
Know
the
that,
Lord.
yeah.
Like Carter and Cooper, that's something that I truly do admire watching from the outside with your parenting is incorporating Jesus into the smallest things, like
Right.
whether it be, oh, okay, we're going to cook breakfast this morning, and just like the empty tomb thing that I showed you
Oh,
for
yeah,
Easter.
yeah,
It was
yeah.
like crescent rolls where you
Yeah,
put
yeah.
marshmallows.
Mhm.
Okay, I was like, just little things like that where you make it interesting. They retain that information
yeah.
and they love it. Like Carter will lead prayer before we eat sometimes. He'll pray, like say their prayer before they go to bed, and it's just so willing. He said it the other night
And
in
they're
front
so
of 10
funny.
people.
Like
Yeah.
it's just so innocent.
Yeah.
And even the other night we were at the lake house and we were all eating strawberry
This was
pie.
sweet.
Like we were all already digging in. Like we weren't waiting to eat.
Yeah.
And Carter called me over there and he was like, "Mom, can you ask Q if he can pray for our
We didn't
pie?"
say the
And I
blessing.
was like,
Aw.
"Yeah, sure, buddy." Like,
So she said,
he
"Q,
just stopped and
Carter wants to know if you'll pray over his pie."
it was just his piece of strawberry
He
pie.
said, "Well, sure."
And he wouldn't eat it until Q prayed for it.
But I think that's so sweet and that's so innocent. And I guess I just think of like things that, like us not being constantly and consistently in church, being in and out of
Right.
it, things that I want to do differently whenever I do have kids. And I'm sure you all think the same way
Yeah.
with your kids, like currently, that you want to do differently.
Well, I guess
from-
just making it like I don't know how you all were raised. Like, did you grow up in
Yes,
church?
yeah.
Like every
Yes,
Sunday, you
yeah.
all were used to it.
Yeah. My dad. Yeah. He would take
So-
us every week.
For me, and this could be totally different for you, but I always just feel like because I didn't know Jesus like a lot of other people, it was so intimidating for me.
Right.
Like, I just kind of felt dumb, like when people
Uncomfortable,
talked
yeah.
about it because I didn't know.
Right.
And that's something I think for me, I really consider with the boys. I just want it to be open conversation and incorporated so that it's not like when it's brought up, like, what did Jesus do again?
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
I
and-
think, too, like I've noticed, like, I grew up in church. I've been a Christian since I was 10. I got
Mhm.
baptized when I was 10, but even like growing up, like you're still learning. And even things like now where like, we do Bible stories with Harley and, we, do those things nightly and stuff, and things will come up and I'll be like, oh. And it's almost like
You're still learning.
Yes, you're
Yeah.
still kind of learning just the simple things that you probably growing up were trying to make more complicated than it really
than
was.
it really
Yes.
was. Yeah. And I find myself a lot thinking when I come to this when I'm like disciplining the boys
Mhm.
because that never crossed my mind, like obviously before I had kids, but even early on until I really feel like I've really gotten into my relationship with God. But disciplining my kids and thinking of the way that God disciplines me, like
Right.
I want to exemplify Jesus as much as I can to my kids. And I find that I do that, or I need to focus on that more when I'm
Right.
in the discipline
Yeah.
aspect of it, as like I want to be a gracious mom and a loving care. Obviously I want my kids to think like, oh my gosh, my mommy's the best. But at
Right.
the same time, I want my kids to know like, okay, this is right, this is wrong.
Right.
This is because of Jesus.
Yeah.
Like truth and love. I think we
Right.
talked about that with Spicer, but like being able to be harsh and discipline with them,
Yep.
but in a respectful way is a loving discipline.
Right.
Not
Yes.
like, come here, I'm going to whip your
Hateful.
tail.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah. No, I totally understand that. And I think too, like a lot of what I try to pray for is patience.
yes.
And you know, there's so little they're learning, like, and it's so hard. And you know, even Drew and I have tried to get better about going back to her and being like, okay, I lost my temper and I'm sorry, you know, and then we kind of have that discussion. And that kind of ties in with the gentle parenting thing, which I don't do great, honestly. It's hard.
Yeah, girl.
It's hard. But like having that open discussion with them where they see you kind of model like godly behavior in the forgiveness and grace and, you know, things like that. It's funny because you said something a second ago that made me think about, we had a guy that preached a couple weeks ago, and he was talking about his senior son that was getting ready to go to prom or whatever. And he was like, I was hugging him. And while I was hugging him, like, I just kept thinking like, I feel like I don't have enough time. Like I'm running out of time.
Well,
He's about to graduate.
Yeah.
And he was like, I still have things that like, I feel like I want to teach him. And he was like, I like to think about our relationship with God that way, in a sense of like, we are his children and there's always things that he's wanting us to teach us and like wanting us to learn from him.
Yes.
And I'm like, oh my word, that is like, I don't
It
know, that's
really
totally
is.
fun.
Yeah. Well, and me and you have talked, not even necessarily on here, but just like your parenting doesn't stop just because your kids are grown. Like
Right.
God gave us that role for a lifetime, and
Right.
that's something. It
just
obviously
changes,
changes.
yeah.
Yeah, like they don't need me to
Wipe
hold their
butt.
hand and wipe their butt all the
I'm
time.
sorry, you
but
went a
like,
different route than I did.
I was trying to be nice and modest, but yeah, they don't need me to
real.
wipe their butt.
Yeah.
But they're gonna need me in other ways,
Right.
And it may be a less affectionate way or something like that, but I'm always going to be their mom, and they're always going to need,
Yeah.
I hope, in a sense, not like, Mom, come here, I need you to pack my clothes.
Right.
But
I
like,
think as you get older, that it's in a different sense. As like I've told Mom, it's not as much of a need.
Yeah.
It's more like a want.
Yeah.
Like I want your
want to
advice.
look-
I want your help.
yeah, I want to be confident, like, or I want my boys to be confident in coming to me. Like, I don't want them to ever be scared to think like, oh my gosh, I got to call and tell my mom
Right,
this. Like,
right,
I want
yeah.
them to think like, no, my mom will know what to do
Right.
because my mom's always been there for me, and I know that she's going to
She's gonna
steer me the
help.
right
Yeah.
way.
Yep.
And I want them to have
is
that
huge.
confidence in
Yeah.
calling me, regardless of what it is. And I kind of want to know, like, if you think there is a difference in raising girls in this and men. Like, do you think there are harder aspects of raising a girl?
Well, she doesn't.
Like
She doesn't
the-
have a boy.
Well, I guess I'm just trying to say,
I think
like,
for me, it's more so like trying to make sure I raise her in a way that she knows her worth in God, and it doesn't matter what other people think about you. I mean, gosh, we have social media and so much of what the world says now of like, these are
that
how,
fills your
Yes,
ears.
these are how
See,
girls should
she
look,
knew what
and
I
these
was
are how
saying.
girls should act, and you know, that sort of thing. And I don't ever want her to feel like she's got to act a certain way
to live up to a worldly standard.
exactly. And so it's so important, like now, for us to really, you know, kind of teach all those fundamental stuff while she's still a sponge, basically.
Yes.
Because, you know, they listen and pick up everything. It's insane. And so, like, that's kind of my biggest standpoint. And I think Drew probably too, especially now that we're about to have another girl. But, like, that is where we kind of come from as far as, like, parenting
Mm-hmm.
and just making sure that, like, it doesn't matter what a boy is going to say about you. And
Yes,
15
like
years.
you
or-
know whose you are,
Yes,
and you're
exactly.
rooted in that.
Exactly.
She knew exactly what I was saying.
Yeah.
My roundabout question. Just couldn't get it out. But that's what I was. Yes, that was the answer I was looking for.
Yeah.
Thank you. Because
Well done.
I feel like
Thank you.
that's a good thing. And in this generation, I guess ours, like that we are in,
Yeah.
that was very like put aside, because I do think that we are a generation of comfort and
Yeah.
pleasing of the world.
Validation.
Yes.
Like, I'm only cool if I have this huge social media following. I'm only pretty.
Well, we grew
if,
up with social media. Like
Yes.
we grew up as it was becoming this big thing. So
It
like
really-
that's
Yeah.
what we know.
And I think that the value in what you and Drew are trying to teach your girls has kind of
Yeah.
been a forgotten
Yeah.
way. Like, because everybody has validated themselves so much on what the world sees us as
Yeah.
instead of,
That's what's encouraged
Yeah.
is
no,
Well, this is how
I
you need
know
to
whose
dress.
I am. And yes, I'm going to be kind and be nice to you, but really your opinion doesn't make a difference
No.
to me.
No,
So,
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
and I think that's important. And I think for me, on the other side of that, with having boys, I don't want. I don't know. I feel like there are a lot of boys now that, even as adults, are just boys.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like that sense of
Maturity.
manliness has kind of also been a lost thing in like what God designed men and women
Right.
to be. So for me, I find my biggest, I guess, push to be behind my parenting would be to raise men, not
Who are gonna
boys.
be
Like, I want
A
to.
godly figure in a household.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I told Reagan this the other day. This is so cheesy, but I thought of this in the car one day. But like, gentlemen, like,
Yeah.
that's what, obviously, that's their name. But
Yeah.
like, that's what I truly want to raise, is a gentle man.
Yep.
I want him to be gentle, kind, loving to his wife, but I also want him to be a man.
Right.
a man.
And-
man.
I want him to be a man, not this sissy boy.
yeah.
So, and again, I think that that's hard in what we're raising our
Yeah.
kids in. Not that God didn't know, obviously,
That it was
what
gonna
we're going to grow
happen.
up in,
Yeah.
but just little things. This is so stupid, but like the sports things, like, we're not all winners.
No. Yeah.
Sorry, but
It's hard teaching that
Gotta be a
concept.
loser
Yeah.
somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
but I think that they need that,
Yes.
and it's
A
hard
tough
to
love of
parent
that, yeah.
in what they're growing up in sometimes.
finding that bound, or like the fine line between like you said, like teaching them to be like a man, but then also like being emotional, or like, that side of being comfortable in their faith, where
Yes.
they're not ashamed, or instead of being like, nah, I'm a man, like we don't talk about those things. Or,
Right.
Yeah,
you
men
know,
don't
about the
cry.
Yeah,
feelings.
exactly. Yeah. It's
Just
there's
being
a fine
into-
line of trying to teach that. I'm sure.
Yes.
I think it's also hard in today's world for the men, because of the worldly standards that are out there, to be, unfaithful, and like that's what's cool.
Yeah.
So they still act like high school boys
Yeah.
because that's what, oh, I've got all the girls,
Yeah.
I feel like that's really hard to find anybody nowadays that is very, like you said, confident in their faith and say like, no, this is what I believe
Right.
and this is what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
Not
But I think-
to not be swayed.
Right.
Having that example at home and from such a
Yes.
young age, like,
Yeah.
you don't know anything different.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, that's what I told Rayleigh. Whenever you start to instill that in them at such a young age, like you said, when they're sponges, it just becomes part of who they are.
Yeah.
That's what they've always known. That's what
that's
they
just
believe.
what,
Yeah, you're right.
That's
Yeah.
how they
are.
live.
Yeah.
Not that they're being introduced to it when they're 25.
Right.
But they've always known. And when I think of this, I always think of Luke's parents. I think they're a fantastic example of this. And we talked about it. We did a couples like Bible study group last year. And I had never really thought of it until we talked about it in couples group. And Quentin was talking about how, like, basically the order that everything goes is you've got God in the center, your marriage rotates around that, and then your kids rotate around
Yeah.
you and your spouse.
Yeah.
Like your spouse, it obviously God, and then your spouse comes first. Like you have to make sure, because I guess I never really thought that you are their example.
Oh, yeah.
Like
Yeah.
if you want to show them what a godly marriage looks like and you want them to be a godly person, they're watching you.
Right.
And you're going to be the one that puts them on that path, because just looking at Quentin and Beth, I'm like, wow, Luke is such a good person. He's literally an angel on earth.
Right.
I see where he gets it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I
that
see
was
why.
his example.
Yeah.
Yes, and that was his, because he treats me, how I see Quentin treating Beth.
Right.
And I just love that, but it's made me want to do that even more because it is being like his spouse. It is so rewarding and knowing like, wow, they did such a good job
Right.
raising him because he is a godly man. He,
Yeah.
is very confident in his faith, but still is very gentle. Luke's
Yeah.
a gentle man.
He's a gentleman.
He is.
Yes, you are, Lukey. I'm proud of you.
Which is also intimidating too. Like you like look at it in full, full perspective, and you're like, oh my word, like I'm raising someone's wife or I'm raising someone's
Yes.
husband.
She
like,
says that a lot.
Like
Because
it's very intimidating
Yes.
and very overwhelming. It can be.
Well, and that's what I do say that to Reagan a lot because everyone always said to me, I feel like when I was having the boys, like, oh my gosh, the newborn days are so hard. Like it gets easier. And now when I'm those newborn days are cake.
They were a breeze. Yeah.
Like the
Yes.
older they get, I feel like, no.
Yeah.
Well, I thought we were getting easier. And
Yeah.
I just feel like every little step, not that it's necessarily like, oh my gosh, this is so hard. I can't manage. But it is harder
Yeah.
for me because these are choices and these are the decisions that are going to put them on the path for where do I
Whole
want them to
life.
go
Yeah.
in life?
Yeah.
Like, how do I want them to act and treat people? And the boys, they are wild, very wild.
I love it. I don't get to experience that.
They are.
You would be in literal shell shock.
They are wild. And I do love that. I would not change it for the world, but it does because a lot of days I really get down on myself and I'm like, oh my gosh, these kids are literally menaces.
Yeah.
Like, what am I doing? Like, I try to parent them
Yeah.
not hard, I guess, but like respectfully. And I'm trying to be
Right.
stern and make them follow the rules. And I know that they do and they understand it because it brings me reassurance. Carter's in preschool now.
Mhm.
And his teachers, he's gotten his little award twice, like student of the week. And it's like
Aw.
so well mannered. And
Yeah.
his teachers are always like, he has such good manners. Like
And
he
you're like,
says yes,
"Yes."
ma'am, and no, ma'am. And I'm like,
Wow.
yes.
I'm
He's
doing
actually
something
doing
right.
it to someone.
Yeah.
I tell him to do that to me, but he never listens. But good thing he's doing it for you. Like, I guess he can be a menace all he wants at home as
Yeah,
long as
that's
he's
right.
well
And
behaved
I
in
will say,
public.
from a teacher's perspective, it is different with your
Yes.
own kids. Like, I would have
They
kids in
just
my
don't
class.
listen.
Yeah.
Well, that's even because I was a supervisor at an after school program right
Yeah.
after I graduated high school. And I would have, whenever parents would come pick up, I'd say, oh, so and so was great
Great,
today.
yeah.
Like, they are always so good. I never have any issues. And
Yeah.
they're like,
What?
That
really?
one?
Yes. Well, even just like with Jace,
Yeah.
one of our friends is his PE teacher.
Okay.
And so whenever I talked to her the first time I figured that out, I was like, oh my gosh, like you've got Jace. She was like, yes, he is the most well-mannered. He's my best kid. And I was like, huh?
Jace?
I was like,
Are you
no,
sure?
no. You're not
Repeat yourself?
understanding.
Yeah.
Literally, I was like, we're not talking about the same kid.
Yeah.
And she was like,
Yeah.
no, I'm so serious. Yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. I was like,
Yeah, it's different. Yeah.
that's interesting.
But I read something one time and it was saying that kids like that, like you should kind of feel a sense of accomplishment
Yeah.
in that because they feel safe enough and comfortable enough
Yeah.
with you that they know, okay, I can let it all out.
Yeah.
I can be who I
Express.
am.
Yeah.
And my mom's still going to love me.
Yep. That's right.
She's going to get annoyed with me, but
Yeah.
she's still
She's
going
still
to
gonna
love
love
me. My mama loves me. That's probably what Carter and Koopy think.
Oh.
My mama don't.
oh, I was
She
like,
don't
well,
mean
daggone girl, toot
nothing.
toot.
No,
My
I'm just
mama
saying,
loves
like-
me.
I mean, I hope they know that, but just in the sense of like,
we have the same mom.
Literally, I was like, huh.
oh yeah, my mama loves me.
My mama
Don't
loves
you, mama?
me.
That's funny.
Oh, man.
Yeah, it is. It's tough. Like, when you're in the trenches of it, dealing with, and you're with them every day, right? So, like,
Yeah,
it's hard. Like sometimes I go to bed and I'm like, was I too harsh today? Or how did I exemplify God's love through how I treated her today?
Mhm.
Or, and things like that. So I've tried to be better about like at bedtime being like, I'm
Like a
proud of you,
self-reflect.
or
yes.
I had a great day with
Me
you
and
today.
the boys, yes,
Like trying to be more of that affirmative kind of
Mhm.
stuff for
yes.
her. And it's so funny because every now and then, like she'll do something and I'll, get onto her and I'll be like, that doesn't make me happy when you do things like that,
Mhm.
whatever. And so like in the last week or two, I'm gonna try not to cry.
It's
The
fine. I
last
cry all the
week
time.
or
I cry
two-
all the time.
last week or two, like she'll do something and she'll be like, afterwards, she'll be like, Mom, are you happy? Like if it's something that
Aw.
I guess seem annoyed by or like fuss at her, Mom, are you happy? Well, then last week for Mother's Day, Drew and I went to pick her up and she did like a little craft or whatever, and the thing said like, my mom is, and then like she had to fill in the blank, and it was said happy, and I was like, because she had been interpreting like me fussing at her and being like, that doesn't make me happy when you do XYZ. And so then just in her brain, you know, she kept asking me, Mom, are you happy? Like when things would happen or come up.
Yeah.
And then when she put that on her craft, and I was like, oh my Lord.
Oh,
Okay, I get
no.
it. I get it, Lord. I get
Yes,
it.
I
Like-
got it. I understand.
I got it.
Yes.
That's
Well-
like what we saw. And I called Rayleigh and told her, I was like, you need to start doing this with the boys.
And I have done it since then. Like we have done that
and I
for so
freaking
long
love
now.
that.
And you would like this. But every single night before the boys go to bed, we do proud moments.
Aw,
And it doesn't have to be something like off
extravagant.
the wall. Yeah, it's just very normal day-to-day things, but we do them for each of the boys. Like Carter, Mommy's proud moment of you today was buckling your car seat the first time I asked you to get in your car. Like
Yeah.
stuff that they probably don't
Yeah.
pay attention to, but just knowing like my mom likes that.
It's
when I
giving
just
positive reinforcement.
Yes.
Yeah.
And now the boys, like, they ask,
Yeah.
what's my proud moment today? Like,
Aw.
why were you proud of me today? What did I do
That
to
is
make you
sweet. I
proud?
love that.
Like, because they look, and I think that
They look forward to
that
it.
changed
Yeah.
my perspective on it. Like, because it is my job as their parent to discipline, to
Right.
make sure they're minding. And a lot of times, not even purposely, but that can feel very naggy.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. How many times did I
okay,
say no
mom,
today?
like,
Right,
I get
yes,
it. Like,
yeah.
you're,
That's
okay,
like-
did I do anything that was good enough? Like, not that they're old enough to necessarily understand that, but the constant discipline, the constant rules, reinforcement, I'm sure that can be like,
It's exhausting.
yeah.
On both ends.
On both,
Yes.
yeah.
But like you said, you know, how many times did I say no today?
Yeah.
How many times? Get down, get
Yeah.
off
Yeah.
the like.
Stop
It
doing
does
that.
seem
Don't
like
hit your
all
brother.
day. It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
So then at night to say,
Yeah.
you know what? Through all that, you still made me proud,
Right.
Yeah.
and I'm going to tell you exactly why.
And it made me really think like and pay more attention throughout the day. Like, what am I going to tell Carter his
Right.
proud moment is, or what is
It makes
Cooper
you pay
doing?
attention.
Yeah.
And I'm more attentive to the good things instead
Pulling
of
something out of. Yeah.
the
Yeah.
okay, I told you to get down 15 times and you still aren't listening to me.
Yeah,
So
I
it-
just love
it
that.
it changed my perspective on it
'Cause
a lot.
I'm a big words of affirmation
Yeah.
person, so being able to give that to somebody else,
Mm-hmm.
I know how it makes me feel.
Right.
So to let somebody else feel
Yeah.
that, I mean, some people don't care, but in a kid, you know,
Oh,
they
yeah.
do.
Yeah, but I
They
think
love it.
kids
They thrive
Yes.
whenever they feel like they've done something right.
Yes.
Because
Yep.
even to this day, if my mom or dad tells me that they're proud of me, I'm like, yes,
Yeah.
I did it.
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
it just makes you feel good. So,
Yeah.
but I also think too, you know, we always feel so overjoyed whenever we do get like those little God winks of like, hey, you're doing good.
Yeah.
You know, proud of you.
Yeah.
It just makes you feel so good. So I feel like to be able to exemplify that, you know, because we know how it feels, give that to somebody else, you know, and just let them think and let them know that no matter what's going on, you know, okay, today all in all could have been a rough day,
Yeah.
but there was something good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's focus on what was
Well,
good
and
today.
I think that's a good like representation to a kid of like, okay, my mom, yes, she's going to discipline me. There are rules that I have to follow. I have to be respectful, but my mom is still proud of me.
Mhm.
Right.
Like, for doing something, not
Yeah.
just she's a
Nagging
drill
at me all the
sergeant and doesn't let me have any fun.
yeah.
But
What are you trying to say? Ray always tells me that I'm going to be a drill sergeant.
Reagan will. You just wait. Reagan will.
My children will listen
I have
too.
my days.
Mm-hmm.
That is for sure.
Well, okay, let's talk about that. I do feel like there is a sense of still being a godly parent,
Yeah.
but not necessarily a gentle parent. Like kids still need discipline.
Yes.
And they
100%.
still
Absolutely.
need the sternness
Yeah.
and sometimes the harshness of like, oh, okay.
No,
my
I
bad.
completely agree. I think that
But I think that people do struggle with that because when they think of not being a gentle parent, they associate it with not being a godly parent. Like
Right.
being godly
Yes.
means okay, Timmy, I've told you 17,000 times to get
I'm
down
gonna
off
tell
the
you one more
counter.
time.
Yeah.
One more
Okay.
time, okay? Did you do it again?
Yeah.
Like, I do feel like
Yes.
that people kind of get those crossed.
Yeah.
Like, well, if I'm going to be a godly parent, I've got to be, okay,
Always
well,
nice,
they're menaces,
always in a good
but
mood.
yes, not step up and say, okay, listen.
Put your foot
Enough's
down.
enough.
Yeah.
Like-
yeah.
No, I completely agree. And I think that there needs to be, but again, I feel, and this is something that I feel like Quentin and Beth embody so well, is I just want my kids to know, like, obviously they're going to test their limits with your parents. Like,
Correct,
that's what
yeah.
we're for.
Yep.
But for them to know, like, no, my mom, no means no.
Yeah.
My mom said no, it means no.
Yep.
Like, she means
And for them
business.
to consistently know that, like, sorry, man, my mom told me no,
Right.
I'm not doing that. But have a discipline, a good foundation of discipline, but in a respectful way. Like, I don't feel
Yes.
like Quentin ever yells, and I yell at the boys sometimes, but I always catch myself, like, I want to work more on just being like, Carter, I said no.
Yeah.
That bottom line.
Yeah.
There's no question. I don't need to scream at you
Right.
to say, for you to get my point. Like,
Yeah.
the discipline and respect, I feel like, need to be there.
Yes. Quentin is also that type of person, though, that if he's talking like very calmly and in a stern voice, you're
It's
like
really scary.
Yeah.
shaking in your
Yeah.
boots.
Yeah.
It's enough to intimidate
Yes.
without
Yeah.
having to do all the
But
extra.
I
yeah.
feel like that was instilled in them because they obviously were spanked when they were kids. Well, I feel like we all were.
Yes.
And it works. I mean, that's
Uh-huh.
going to be a controversial thing. But
Well,
I do think, from my experience, when I knew my daddy meant business.
Oh, yeah.
Whenever
yeah,
he,
when I saw the belt,
I was like,
Ours is a
Quinn.
wooden spoon.
Yeah.
Yes, ours was a belt. And I was like, oh boy, I've messed
Yep.
up,
Yep.
But
too far.
too far. But I do think that Quentin and them, and I really hope that, or not hope, Luke and I will instill this in our children. They solve a lot of issues by sitting down and talking,
yeah.
not which obviously we're adults now, like we're grown.
Yeah.
And not that there's a lot of issues, but even like when we were teenagers, if there was something that Luke had done wrong or whatever, we would sit down and talk about it.
Yeah.
Like,
And I
okay,
think that's
explain to me
good.
Yeah.
why I mean, now granted, it's different. It changes as they get older because,
Right.
the older they get, they know right and wrong.
Oh,
You can sit
for
down and
sure.
talk about it.
Yes.
When they're younger,
Yeah.
they need some redirecting
Yeah.
sometimes. But I do think that is a huge thing that I want to be able to instill in my kids is the open line of communication.
Yep.
That no matter what I've done, no matter what's going on, I know like it's going to be tough and it's going to be uncomfortable,
Yeah.
but I can go and
go
talk
to
to
my
my
mom
and
parents.
dad.
Yes.
Which I think is totally reflective on like God's love for us because there should always be an open line of communication with God and prayer, and not only that, but like his will for us to be obedient to him in whatever it is. So like, trying to teach your kids to be obedient
Yeah.
is the same thing as like us as adults. Like
It
you
can't
know,
be a do as I
trying to
say, not as
listen to
I
what-
do.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like I'm telling you to do this,
Right.
and I'm also going to exemplify that
Yeah.
for you.
Exactly.
Not you don't do that. I'm going to.
I'm going to do it
Yeah.
anyways.
you
Yeah.
know, like that's completely contradicting.
right.
But I completely agree with that is a reflection of God's love for us because he always loves us no matter what.
Right.
He always is going to be there.
Unconditional,
You know,
yes.
sometimes those prayers, those conversations may be uncomfortable,
Right.
but I know and,
And
I'm
there
very
is
confident.
discipline. Like,
yes,
he
he does
obviously
discipline.
Conviction.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
But I confidently believe that I can go talk to him with absolutely anything that's on my heart, that's on my mind.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I want my kids to feel that way with,
With
God.
with God,
Yeah.
but
and
with
you.
me too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
That
Yep.
is, I do be liking that.
That is
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
I'm trying to think.
I know. I feel like there was something else that we were going to touch on, but I can't remember. Well, going back to like the spanking thing, because I know some people don't spank their kids, but I spank my kids.
Yeah. Same.
But I have tried to be more upfront as to like why I'm going to spank you
Your expectation
instead of
yeah.
just spanking and then explaining myself after because
Well, I've seen a lot of videos though about that though, like where you discipline whatever then they have time to calm down. You have time to calm down. And then you come back and say, okay, listen, we're going to talk about this. What happened earlier?
Yeah.
Now that we're both calm,
Yeah.
we're both kind of over
Yes.
what
Yes.
happened.
Yeah.
Let's discuss why that happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I saw something, I can't remember like what the thing was, but it was this dad and his son, and the dad, I don't remember what it was. Say it was a bar stool or something, but he was like, stop climbing on the bar
Right.
stool. Stop climbing on the bar stool. Well, the kid wasn't understanding,
doing
so kept doing it. The dad yanked him down, spanked him, got him in trouble, whatever, and then they were walking out, and the kid looked at him and was like, Dad, what's a bar stool?
Oh.
Because they are so little, and
Yeah.
sometimes they really
sometimes
they
they
don't
don't know.
understand. Like, so taking the time to actually communicate, like, this
asked
is
you to
what
get off of
mommy
this.
is
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah.
This is what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Then if you don't listen after that,
Right. But even like literally saying this right here, I'm talking about
Yeah.
this. Do not
don't
get on
climb
it.
on
Yeah.
this. Yeah,
And then after that, like
that
it's
just
you've
made me
made
so
yourself
sad
clear.
to read that,
Yeah.
because you know, so many times they're like,
That happens.
"What did
Yeah.
I do?"
Oh, yeah.
Like, I just didn't understand what she was saying to me.
I think too. I had a situation with Harley one time where she was doing something, it escalated. She got in trouble, and so I took her to her room to calm down because after I disciplined her, she's like ballistic, and I'm like,
Mhm.
"You're gonna calm down. I'm gonna go calm down." And then I came back in the room, and I was like, she was calmed down, and then like I tried to talk to her like, this is what you did, and this is we can't do that, blah blah blah. And then, like I said earlier, I was like apologizing for how I reacted in the time. And when I apologized to her, she started crying all over again, almost like she knew she did wrong,
Mm-hmm.
but it was like it hit her emotionally to hear me say like, "I'm sorry
I'm
that
sorry."
yeah." So
And
that
I
to me is
think-
eye opening, where I was like, "Oh, okay, I need to do that more," because clearly, when I just get mad and angry with her or whatever, but don't fully address it or apologize for my part in it,
Yes.
that's hurting her feelings, or,
But I even feel like that shows them too that although from the outside, like it looks like anger,
Right.
whenever you go and apologize, I feel like that does show to them like, hey, that hurt her feelings.
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I don't like when my feelings are hurt and I've
Right.
hurt her feelings.
Yeah.
Almost makes them feel somewhat like
Yeah.
remorseful for
Right.
what they've done, because
Yeah.
it wasn't like, oh, well, that made mom mad.
yeah,
It was more of like,
Yes.
I'm disappointed. You
Yes.
know how
Yeah.
that works.
Yeah.
I find myself too, because a couple weeks ago, I don't even know if I told you about this, but Cooper, we were on the couch and he kept like jumping around, and like he would take my phone and he was throwing it around, and he hit me in the mouth. And it hurt so bad, and it just caught me off guard. And right when he did it and it hit me, I smacked him on the leg,
yeah,
and he looked at me just with those big puppy eyes
Yeah.
and put his head down in the couch and just started crying. And
Crying.
I was like, oh my gosh, I'm the worst mother in the entire world.
no,
But I knew that like I was not having a good
Yeah.
day. And I try, obviously I have bad days all the time, but like it does give me a sense of motivation to like keep my heart in check and in a good place so that I can give my best
for your
To
kids.
them.
to
Yeah.
them, and not, because obviously when I do find myself in those situations or like something like that happening, it's a me problem.
Yeah.
It wasn't that he didn't purposely do it. I know it was an
He
accident,
was just
but
being a kid. and
my
yeah.
reaction was not what it should have been when he did
Yeah.
that, and I literally felt so horrible about it. And then I just dwell on it the rest of the day, and I can't do that either.
Right.
But sometimes it is like I was disappointed in myself,
Yeah.
so I tried to make it right with him. Like,
Mhm.
Mommy, sorry, I didn't mean to. Mommy
Yeah.
shouldn't have reacted like that.
Right.
And hope that, which 5 minutes later, he was like, yeah, whatever, I don't care.
Literally.
And I was
They're
like,
resilient. It's
good.
okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I think that, like you said, how that just kind of, it makes you keep your heart in check. That just proves that though the kids are truly a gift from God, because
Yeah.
this is something like, here, listen, this is going to help you
Mhm.
better you.
Mhm.
You're going to better them, but they're also
if you will
going to
look at it that way. I think
Yes.
that there are some people that can look at kids as
a burden.
a hindrance.
Mhm.
Like, oh my gosh, this is so aggravating. But
Girl, just like we always say, it's a mindset.
it really
It's a
is. And I
mindset.
just,
It is. It's how your perspective. I mean, you can look at
Yep.
it like it's the worst thing, or you can look at it like this is the best thing in the world.
I started reading a book last night, and I'm only like a chapter in, but I started reading a book last night, and it's about like motherhood and finding the good things, you know, God's good work in motherhood. And there was like a line that said something about like motherhood should be a relationship between you and a child that God like gifted to you. And so like that was kind of more eye-opening for me, because I was like, oh, like this she was specifically made for me,
Given to you.
from God.
Yeah.
Yes. And so it's so eye-opening when you look at it in like a faith perspective.
Yes.
Like, I'm being trusted with this child, you know.
Yes,
like,
God gave you.
Yes.
It's a privilege, I feel like, that God trusts me enough to raise this kid, and he gave me a job, and I don't want to fail at that job. Like, I'm not going to do it perfectly, and he knows that, and that's why I have to constantly seek him
and
along
that's what
with
it said.
this.
It said too. It said something about like, you know, motherhood is something that draws people more to God, because you need that guidance and support and, you know, constant prayer of, what do I do? How do I handle this?
Yes.
You know, like, because especially as a first time mom, like it's such a foreign
don't
thing.
know what you're
Right.
doing.
You have no idea
Yeah.
what you're doing.
And even as they get older, these decisions, like me thinking of Carter going to school or all of this stuff, I'm like, I don't know.
No, yeah.
What am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
Like,
Well, and then you're also sending him off into the world. I mean, not really, but like,
No,
you're
I
sending
say this
him
all the
off,
time.
like, and just for one, trusting other adults that they're going to be a loving and, you know, respectful
Role
example.
model.
yes.
And also, like, you know, he's going to be around different kids, and like, what is he
Different
learning from those?
influences.
Yes. And
That's
so
what
it's
I've
hard.
told Reagan, because I'm really struggling. Carter could start kindergarten this year. I don't know that he'll go. I may just keep him home another year, because what's one more year?
Yeah.
And he's got the rest of his life. But I do feel like you get like 5 years of innocence with your babies, and then you do kind of have to hand them to the world a little. And that for me has just been heavy, because I wonder, like, have I done a good enough job? Like, is he
ready?
Is he ready to face those things? And not that in kindergarten he's going to be making like life-altering decisions,
Right.
but still, just like
Buying his first house.
that outer influence starts to seep in, and
Yes.
then I feel like it's not going to be just what mommy says
tainted a
anymore.
little
It's
bit,
like,
yeah.
well, my friend does this, so why can't I do it like that?
Yeah.
And like that stuff that is overwhelming to me, and that's where I catch myself most often in this season right now, having to just take that day by day, and like, God will guide me in that and bring me peace and trust that I am doing a good enough job that he's going to be okay.
Yeah. And for me, that's so hard, because I'm such a type A control freak. Like, letting go and knowing that God already knows everything about my child's life.
Yes.
Like,
It's still hard.
yes, it's very hard
Yes.
letting go of that control of just trying to be a hand in everything and just let God's will
that's
be done.
I don't know how to handle that,
Right.
because, and like you being at home all the time, like I am with them 24/7. I don't like them being with other people. And I mean, they go 2 days a week, half days, like, and that to me feels huge, because I'm like, well, what are you doing all day?
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
I want to know, but I know I have to be able to let go little by little and trust that I'm doing my part, and God is obviously going to do his. Like, he, like you said, he knows literally everything that they're going to encounter and do. So for me, I guess it's more of a selfish side of me. Like,
Your human nature.
I don't want to let them go.
Yeah.
So I am going to do it my way until you tell me otherwise, which me and the Lord aren't getting along about that right now.
It's all right.
We will.
Well, I think this was a fantastic conversation. Much needed. I think it's good for you all to be able to talk about it with each other. And I like being able to hear it from different perspectives and, you know, take notes.
Do's and don'ts.
Thank y'all for having me. This has been
Thank
so
you
fun.
for being here.
It's
Seriously.
so refreshing to know that there are other like-minded people
yes,
in
there
raising
are.
Yes.
babies in Jesus.
Yes. For
But do you want to pray us out?
I can.
Okay, girl.
Okay. Dear God, thank you so much for this day. Thank you for Mallory and Drew and the precious babies that you have given them the privilege of raising. Thank you for their faith and their outlook on parenthood. I know that as a mom, it can feel extremely overwhelming and extremely isolating sometimes to wonder if we're doing this the right way. And I'm just thankful to know that there are people out there that are hopeful to raise our kids in Christ and to raise little boys and little girls to know you, God, and to spread your word and shine your light in a way that will last forever. I pray that Mallory and Drew know how great of a job that they're doing and that you can continue to be with them as they welcome their new baby and continue just to be with all of us that are in this season of parenthood, that you are there for us. You're there to guide us and lead us and help us to raise these babies in the exact way that you know we're able to do with your help. Please continue to be with us throughout this week and guide us in everything that we do. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Good job, girlfriend. Okay, well, guys, that is it for this week. Mallory, thank you again so much for being here. We had so much fun. So, guys, we will be back next week with another episode. And just in the meantime, always remember, Jesus loves you.